Can drug cheats be allowed to compete and be informants? Apparently, yes, according to USADA, the national anti-doping watchdog of the United States. On Wednesday, Reuters reported on a spiraling clash between USADA and the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, over the U.S. tactics of allowing at least 3 drug cheats to compete in exchange for them being informants on others. WADA and USADA have both issued statements following the report. WADA said the cases were uncovered between 2011 and 2014, but it was only informed in 2021, and the agency did not sign off on the practice. USADA called the former's statement a smear and deflection attempt by the world body and insisted that the tactic was necessary for federal crime investigation and that WADA has never appealed against it, even though they had the right to do so. Who is truly at fault here? Have international rules on violation and transparency been upheld? And what is fueling this escalating dispute? I'm pleased to be joined from Beijing by Cai Guo, managing partner of Jingmao Beijing law firm, and also from Beijing by Fabio Rees, founding partner of Rock Beijing Sports and Leisure Limited. Welcome to The Point. So the idea of the story, and we only know limited details by now, is that on Wednesday, WADA said that USADA broke the global code by letting several athletes it had caught cheating between 2011 and 2014 go undercover and continue competing without prosecution. All of this in exchange for information on other violators and drug-related crimes. Ms. Cai, let me go to you first. Did USADA make a deal with the athletes after they were caught taking drugs? Is that what's happening, actually? What was happening?
Yes, I think that is essentially what's mirrored the practice usually we found in the US law, which we can say it's like the perpetrator can actually engage in bargaining with the law enforcement, police, or prosecutor to act as a whistleblower or undercover agents in exchange for more lenient treatment. So that is what usually happened in the U.S. domestic context. Apparently, we found the U.S. often engaged in bringing in its own domestic practice in criminal investigation into the anti-doping practice that everyone has to follow the road code.
Mr. Rees, what is your reading of what happened? Who may have been involved? Here we know at least 3 athletes, one of them high-profile one, and how serious their doping cases might have been.
Yeah, frankly speaking, I don't know the details. I just know what media reports have reported so far, international as well as Chinese ones. And apparently, I totally agree with what Ms. Cai just said. I mean, it looks as if some kind of deal making was going on, and there has been some special treatment, let me say, for these potential whistleblowers. And yes, this is definitely a practice which apparently is legal in the United States, but which should not be applied on an international scale. And especially since WADA is an entity which is neutral, and it is, I mean, its existence is based on a consensus of all nations that its ruling should be transparent and, let me say, on a higher level than national rulings.
Well, I mean, the United States, of course, has the right to follow its own domestic practices and laws and regulations, but it's signed up to WADA's code. It's, part of the international governance. So shouldn't it follow the rules that everyone else is following as member of the WADA in terms of how to handle violation cases, in terms of disclosure, in terms of sanction, punishment? Ms. Cai.
So I think what happened here is, as it's quite similar to what had happened to the Chinese cases that U.S. pointed its finger to, because I believe that the WADA code was silent in whether it allows or prohibits such practice of using this deal making in the prosecution of doping cases. So I guess the USADA was quite insistence on its stance, because this is what WADA was not prohibiting in its code. So it is entirely legal for it to pursue its own domestic practice, but apparently it's contradictory to what WADA interpreted its code. So that's how the clashes started.
Well, you're basically assuming that the USADA or relevant authorities had little idea about the rules, but I'm sure they know the rules, they read the rules, they sign up to the road. They should know, right, Ms. Tsai?
I think they knew it, but they took advantage of the fact that the rule were silent in prohibiting such practice, so they can insist, just like the U.S. did in other long-arm jurisdiction cases, that they believe that the code or the current scheme will allow them to do so. So I think that is U.S. own interpretation, which doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, especially concerning transparency. Even if WADA may have some kind of loophole in its code as to whether a tainted athlete can work as informants in order to lesser or exonerate itself, the United States national authority has been bragging about its transparency standard. And I quote from a report in AP in June this year, where Mr. Tygart, the CEO of USADA, actually says, "We did what the rules require us to do in all positive cases." He said, "We can take comfort that justice was served and transparency as required by the rules was achieved." And the report also says USADA insisted it has followed the rule book in all of those cases, including making public any violation, even if it did not result in a penalty. Mr. Rees, do you see a contradiction? Because clearly, to me, there's a stark contradiction between how they're handling the violation cases and those who should have been sanctioned, and how they're claiming.
There seems to be a contradiction, definitely. So there is no doubt about that. Unfortunately, these things happen all the time, and they happen all around the world. This is also a fact. I mean, rules are there which theoretically are valid for everybody, but then there are different interests and different entities who have their own agenda, and they claim to stick to the rules, but in the end, when they can, they definitely put their own interests first.
So what should happen here then, if there is such a dispute? And by the way, USADA did not contest the facts that WADA has pointed out that at least 3 athletes were caught doping between 2011 and 2014, and USADA did not take action against them, did not sanction them, and only inform WADA in 2021, which is 10 years later. So who can decide whether these cases should be prosecuted, whether we will go to the appeals court in Switzerland, Ms. Tsai?
So if there is a dispute concerning how the case should be handled and whether it is mishandled, I believe the correct way of handling it is to resolve it legally. So WADA or USADA are perfectly entitled to bring it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport for resolving this dispute. But so rather than attacking each other in politically charged statements. So that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, and Mr. Rees, let me go to you. The USADA is or many people in the United States are nothinging WADA. They are saying WADA is biased, so they are not respecting WADA's neutrality. They want to stop funding. They want to give the president the power to stop funding WADA, and they want to have their own domestic law overriding international rules in terms of prosecution when it comes to doping. So it seems that the United States wants to take the matter in their own hands.
I don't think so. I mean, there might be comments from individuals who maybe air this kind of opinions and whatever, but this is happening all the time everywhere. I totally agree with Ms. Tsai's opinion. I mean, that this thing can be perfectly handled in a very open and transparent way legally. There are entities who are in charge of handling this kind of things. And I think WADA is an internationally entitled agency, which is definitely also able to bring these things forward. I mean, the US are signatories to the WADA code and so on. So I think there might be some individuals who see their national interest or the national pride or whatever hurt by these accusations. But I think what really matters is what the official statements are from the government, from the relevant authorities, and so on. And the official statements seem to be very clear-headed and not politically charged. So I think this is really, I mean, we should have confidence in the fact that WADA and public opinion in general, for most part, is probably, let me say, has the goodwill to solve these things.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. My only I don't have the peace of mind because I know that the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI have launched criminal investigation concerning doping cases of other countries using their domestic law. They are subpoenaing WADA officials for testimony in these criminal investigation. They are introducing bills to give the White House the power to cut funding to WADA, and we've seen a pattern of the United States withdrawing from international pacts or institutions when it is not in favor of its interest. So although my hope is that this can be handled in a rational and reasonable way, I can't really be totally convinced and optimistic at this moment. Anyway, we have to keep a close watch on the situation. I thank my two guests, Tsai Guo, managing partner of Jingmao Law Firm, and Fabio Rees, founding partner of Rock Beijing Sports and Leisure Company Limited. Thank you very much.